Guten Tag. Cushions are done. Today is a new day. Yesterday I got home and it was just pouring rain. The next thing I have on my to-do list is painting, and I don't want to do that unless I can have all the hatches opened. Even though I wear a respirator, I don't want my boat to get super fumesy with paint because I do have to also live here and sleep here. I don't want to do this. Starting a project is always the hardest part. I think once I get going it'll be fine, but the new cushions are still here and they still look fabulous. Check out these things. They look good. I have so much stuff that's the same color on my boat now, this sage green. So anyway, this is what the V-berth looks like right now. So not only is there mold on the overhead, which just happens when you live on a boat, I do clean it pretty regularly. The paint is peeling off, especially around the foredeck hatch, which used to have a lot of leak problems, and I think that's why the paint's eventually just degraded there. For the majority of the V-berth, I just have to give it a nice scuffing up to get the paint ready, to have some primer stick to it. But for the stuff around the V-berth, I'm going to be peeling back the paint and then giving it a really good sanding to get those edges smoothed down, because there's a lot of water damage. The thing that is a bummer is that I don't have a vacuum, because as you know, sanding creates a lot of dust. So what I'm going to do is tape off the doorway of the V-berth so that nothing can get into the head or past that into the main cabin. So the first order of business is getting some rousing tunes going and then pulling everything out of the V-berth and putting it in the main cabin where it shall live for the next 24 hours. All right, this is my little hole. So I took the trash bag, I cut a slit up the middle, and I kind of taped it shut so that I can still get in and out. I'm gonna close the door to the head like this, so that even if some stuff escapes into the head, at least it doesn't go into the main cabin. As we know, painting is mostly prep, and then a lot of painting too. Basically, it's a lot of work. Welcome to my sanding the overhead outfit. We have thing on the hair to protect the hair from dust, sunglasses to protect the eyeballs from dust, thing on the face to protect the nose and mouth breathing holes from dust. I'm using 120 grit initially around these edges where I had to scrape off the paint, and then I'm gonna go over it with a 220 and over the whole thing with a 220. This is just for to get those rough edges sanded down, and luckily it's only the area around the main hatch that's really messed up. Everything else just needs a light scuff, which is cool. Alright, done with the sanding. Obviously this worked really well because it's completely fallen off my head, so I'll just spend the rest of the day looking like I have dandruff. Wait, how did it go on? Not like that. This is not how I had it before. I think this is backwards. The next thing that I'm gonna do is openly struggle in front of the camera to put on the thing. There we go. Use some paint thinner and a rag and some gloves, and I'm gonna wipe down the whole overhead it'll clean the mold off, and it'll also clean off the little sandy bits of sandedness. Then it's time to tape. I washed the cushion covers for the V-berth because why not? They were already off the bed and they were pretty a wee bit moldy, so those are nicely drying as well. Good morning. This is coming to you from Hood Rat Alley. Today's day 2 of painting. So yesterday I primed and then I let the paint dry overnight. Today it's time for a shiny top coat, which is very exciting. It already looks so good even though it's just the matte primer. The V-berth was desperately in need of a coat of paint and I'm very, very happy with it. First coat of top coat is on, and the minimum amount of drying time required between coats has passed, so I'm on to the second coat. It's another gloriously sunny day, which is awesome for painting. Then I have a bunch of other stuff that I need to work on today because the work list never ends. Yesterday I serviced the winches, cleaned, took off my Dodger and put it under a freshwater tap with soap and scrubbed it. And today my big job is getting my fuel tank out. I have a 10-gallon fuel tank and I just want to clean it out because I've had a lot of problems with dirty fuel and I feel like there's probably a bunch of gunk in there. So I have my friend John coming over in about half an hour to help me get the tank out because it's bolted through the bulkhead, so it's a 2-person job. But before he gets here, I'm just disconnecting everything so that it's ready to go when he arrives. So I've already taken off this, which is the vent. Now I'm taking off this guy, which is what the fuel gets lifted up through here, through the Raycor. So this I just loosened, and I'm going to take this off, and then the last thing is to just take off this, which brings it up to the deck fill, and then it's ready to go for when he gets here, and all he has to do is sort of help me out, plug and play. We should be good to go. Alright, fuel tank is out. Took a bit of getting it to get it. Here she is. Definitely needs a lot of love. Definitely needs some rust busting, a new coat of paint. The back is perfect, and then the sides, the top, and the front are quite rusty. I left this on because, well, when it was pretty stuck into it, made pouring the excess diesel out easier. That's all in here. And I don't think I'm going to keep it because there was a bunch of gunk that came out of the tank when I poured it out, so I think I'm going to responsibly dispose of that. And the next step is just getting this thing rust busted and then cleaning out the inside. So for now I'm going to put everything back in the las and close that up and move on to the next task, which is finishing servicing the winches, putting the Dodger back on. I scrubbed it clean, it looks amazing. And yeah, I have a giant list of projects to carry on with for today, so the work never ends. I did get my diesel tank back though yesterday, so this incredibly kind Kiwi, who I wanted to do an interview with him and I wanted to plug his business, but he didn't want any of that. He said he's busy enough as it is. They have way too much work, which just makes this gesture even more amazing and kind because he's so busy. But we got in communication when I was replacing my engine, and he's been giving me a lot of great advice, and then we started talking about how I want to take out my diesel tank and how it really needs to be cleaned, and the outside was really rusty, so he was going to come down with a pressure washer for me so I could clean it out. And then he got down and he looked at the tank and he was like, you know what, I'm taking this back to my shop and I'm going to do this for you, and I'm going to paint it for you and clean it for you and bring it back, and I don't want any money for it. And the fact that he doesn't want an interview or a business plug just makes it so genuine to me. But anyway, he said that he has, in his whole career, he's never seen a diesel tank more clogged up with gunk than mine. He said he pressure washed it twice, they steam cleaned it, they cleaned it out with denatured alcohol, and he gave me a little jar of some of what was in it, and it's just these calcified, probably not the right word, these chunks of gunk chunks. But now the tank is beautifully cleaned inside, beautifulully painted on the outside, no more rust, which is really nice because it was getting a lot of stuff rusty. So now I need to reinstall it. It's gonna, all right, I have sunshine. It's freaking cold, but I'm gonna put this tank in while the opportunity is here. So I've taken everything I need to out of the las, and I'm just prepping everything to get the tank in. The last thing I need to do is clean out the little fuel pickup line, and then I'm gonna start working the tank in. As I say this, I realize that I need I'm really excited to turn my boat back into a living boat and then less out of this projects mode boat because everything is just so messy. I have a very important bag of bolts that should be in here. It's not in here. Where did I put it? There we are. And back in shiny. Look at that. My batteries desperately need this sun. They're not very happy. So this is the fuel pickup line. It was super corroded, but I've scraped all the corrosion off. I'm just gonna buff this out with a little bit of a copper brush, I think, and I'm just going inside the tube right now with some Q-tips just to clean out the gunk on the inside. Hopefully it's not all the way up the tube, but there's not really much I can do about it if it is. Here she is, all nicely shined up, ready to go back into the tank. The next challenge is just getting the tank into the Laz by myself. Getting it out, I had help and it was really hard, but it also had some diesel in it still, so it'll be a little bit lighter this time. I think I'm gonna have to make some sort of a bridle for it to lower it down because I can't get my hands in that deep. Okay, it's in now. I think if I can get in with it, I'm not sure because there's not a lot of room, and I can sort of manhandle it into position. And then my plan, so it's through bolted. The heads of the bolts are actually on the other side of the boat inside, but I think I'm gonna push 2 of them through on the top and 2 through on the bottom, and then go to the back and reverse them and then go back out and reverse them again. First I need to get this bad boy into position. So this needs to be turned and against that wall, so I need to somehow fit into here. Thanks to the help of one of my kind and friendly neighbors, I have the diesel tank back in place and bolted on, and now all I have to do is re-bed the deck fill, which it just started raining again, so I'm gonna have to pause on that. I kind of stuffed it back in. It's not ideal. I hate having it not bedded in the rain because there is a balsa core to the deck. Today is the day I've been not looking forward to for quite a long time. I'm painting the overhead of the main cabin, which is an enormous undertaking. Involves taking everything out of the main cabin, covering everything in plastic, scraping all the flaky paint, and sanding, prepping, priming. That is on the table for today. So the first thing that I have to do is get everything out of the main cabin. I'm gonna stuff it up into the V-berth. My boat's gonna be basically uninhabitable for the next 2 days, but that's fine. I'm staying on Uhuru. They're in the same marina as me, just further over. Big job. Am I procrastinating by talking into the GoPro? Well, yes, I am. Thank you for asking. All right. This is so much more work than I thought it would be. It's already 1. I started at 9 and I'm still not done prepping the overhead. I have scraped all the paint off, sanded all the edges down so it's nice and smooth. And now what I have to do is just really scrub the overhead and get it super, super clean because there's a lot of mold on it. So that's probably gonna take another hour. And then I have to tape everything. I have to tape all the windows. So it's probably gonna be another couple hours. I think if I get my first coat of primer on by 5, I'll be doing well, which is a little bit daunting, but anyway, I'm making lunch because it's 1 and I'm really hungry. I have closed off the V-berth in the head area because there's so much fiberglass dust in my boat and I wanted to keep somewhere clean, and that's where I'm keeping my food and that's where I'm prepping my food so it doesn't get fiberglassy. So I'm making a salad in my bed. And I'm using baby wipes to kind of try to keep the cutting board clean, but I don't really want to prep anything or keep anything out there with the fiberglass dust. Normally with the overhead, I clean it with a mixture of bleach and vinegar, not mixed together obviously because it makes a poisonous gas. But in this case, because I need to prep the whole surface with acetone anyway, and it takes mold off really well, I'm just going to clean it with some paint thinner and a rag. So safety gear is respirator and gloves, and I have all the hatches open. It's a really sunny, really windy day, so it's a great day to paint. Okay, 6 hours of prep, including a 45-minute lunch break later, and I think I have everything good to go. The overhead is scraped, cleaned, mold off it, primed with paint thinner. sanded, everything is taped, and I've put plastic over as much as I can, and then I have some moving pieces of plastic that I can kind of shift around as I paint to try to protect the inside as much as I can. The primer is really thick, and none of it got anywhere when I was doing the V-birth, so I'm not as worried about the primer today as I am about the paint tomorrow. So I'm probably gonna go at the end of the day today, walk to the grocery store and get some more big trash bags to use to cover the rest of the main cabin today. But I just don't have time to do that for the primer, which I think is gonna be fine. So here's what the boat looks like for the primer day, day one. Okay, it is, I'm not wearing my watch, o'clock. 5, I think. Watch is here. Ooh, I was really close. So I've been working, I worked a 9 to 5 today. I'm like a business person. Just finished painting the whole interior. I'm just standing in here for a second to do this. And I've taken off my respirator line, so I know what it'll look like when I'm old. And just did the primer coat on everything. It looks really good. There's some spots, the places where it was raw fiberglass, that do look like they need more primer on them. I'm gonna do 2 or 3 coats of the shiny stuff on the top coat, I think some people call it. But yeah, it's been a big long day, but I'm really happy to get this done. This is one of the big projects that's been sort of floating over my head and leering down at me, and I'm just really glad that it's starting to be, I mean, the worst of it's over. The worst of it was prepping. And now tomorrow I can come back in here and it'll be really easy. I can just start painting right away because everything is already prepped and good to go. Okay, here we go, different day, same outfit. Just putting on my same disgusting clothes because what's the point of changing them? I'm just gonna reek of paint by myself, so who cares? Yesterday I did the primer and today I'm doing the top coat. So what I used for primer was this International 1-Up 2-in-1 primer and undercoat for 1 part finishes. So yeah, I don't know, this is what the guy at the hardware store told me to buy. It's kind of expensive, but it's good shit. And then for the top coat I'm using the same brand, International, and it's just the white. I used the Snow White in the V-birth and it was kind of too white. But so I bought the slightly less in-your-face white for the main cabin. And yeah, this is the same brand that I used when I initially painted everything on my boat. I mean, it's more expensive because it's marine, but it's a really good paint, and I just feel like if I'm gonna do it, I wanna do it right. So that is pretty much what I'm doing. I guess I didn't really talk about this yesterday. I have this tiny tray, I have these tiny little foam rollers, and a little paintbrush. The paintbrush I use to get around all the edges and all the tiny bolts and stuff that I'm painting, and then the big roller is great for everything else. I don't have a full-sized roller because I don't know why. This is the one that they had at the store, but I like the size of it because since it's not just a giant flat wall and there's actually a lot of little spaces to get into, I think the smaller one makes more sense for my boat. Like, these spaces are really hard to get into, so yeah, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't really know if it's like something that everyone should do, but it is working for me. day, grand day of days. I just finished putting everything away and my boat just looks awesome. It is pretty bad fumes still, so I'm trying to not spend too much time on board. I've given myself a lot of errands to do off my boat today, but I am taking a second to lie down and appreciate this shiny, beautiful ceiling. It looks so good. In addition to putting a new I-splice with a thimble into my anchor chain rod, I also shortened it pretty significantly. It was probably 4 times longer than it needed to be. I cut it to a length of about 60 feet. That's all that I'll ever need of it. I don't anchor more than in more than 55 feet of water. And if I put down 55 feet of road in addition to the chain, that gives me about a 4-to-1, and I don't want to put any more than that because I don't want the rope to be touching the bottom, which probably has coral on it because that's the places that I'm anchoring now. And before it was just stuffing the anchor chain locker full and putting a lot of unnecessary weight forward. So I've cut it, I'm taking it out, and I'm going to store it in the LAZ, and then I can actually use it for other stuff. The way that I'm storing it is a trick that I learned on tall ships because we have a lot of giant dock lines and other types of lines that we store. So this one, because it's Samson braid, I made it into a figure 8 coil, and then I folded the figure 8s together, and now I'm taking these little pieces of string and tying it around the coil in 3 spots to keep it from coming uncoiled so that I can throw it in the locker and not worry about it. I received in the mail last night my Windvane parts. It looks a little different than the one that came off, but I've double checked the diagrams, and it does belong to the part that I need, so I think it might just be a more modern version. Here it is. It comes with a little cotter pin, and then I also bought the spring, and this one has a rope on it. I don't really know. I'm not sure. I really hope that it fits. If not, I've just spent a lot of money on something that's not going to work, but we're not going to say anything until I try. So I'm going to go out and give this a shot. I think I just have to see what happens and then I'll be able to know if it was right or wrong. So the first thing I have to do is take off the old repair, and then I'm not sure if it's easier to launch the dinghy and do it from there or to crouch on the Windvane and do it from there. So let's get started. So this is the old bit, and you can see these are the pieces that actually sheared off, and then this is the old spring that's totally sprung out. So I just have to take off this cotter pin here and slide this bolt out, and then I should be able to just slide the new one on. And theoretically, that's all I need to do. I'm not really sure what this guy does, but I think that's where I'm going to start and then see if the new one fits in. Also, down here I'm noticing that there is some chafe right here on this line, so I might just pull it through a little bit further and tie a new knot in the bottom to get rid of that. Probably do the same on the other one too. So the cotter pin got stuck in here, both sides actually. I was completely unable to get out, so I'm in the process of drilling it out. I finally got enough of both sides drilled out that I could take the pin out, and now I have vice gripped it to the cockpit, and I'm just trying to drill out the last little bit of it so that I can put the new bit on. Alright, I finally got this drilled out, so now I can get to the business of actually trying to install it. It goes, the pin goes through here, and then, oops, kind of a tight fit, then the spring goes on. I'm not sure which way the spring is supposed to go. So this is what it's going to look like, except on the thing. I need to think about how I want the spring orientation to be. Alright, I'm looking at the parts diagram, and it looks like the spring is in this orientation. So I'm going to try that with the little nose pointing down, and yeah, we'll see. Just keep trying until it works. Okay, I just finished doing this. This was insanely way more complicated than it needed to be, but it was kind of tricky to figure out how to put the string. So this is a different system than the I guess this is the more modern system for the trim tab. So this is actually pretty cool. The old one, I would release it down and then I had to push on the tab while I pulled the trim tab up at the same time. This one just automatically clicks in place, and then to release it, all I have to do is pull the red string and it pops up. So it's simpler, easier to use. I don't need to lean over the back with a stick, and yeah, I really like it. Thank you guys for watching this week's video. I put out new videos on YouTube every 2 weeks on Mondays, and for my patrons, you guys get a snack on the weeks that I don't put out a full-length YouTube video. Patron snacks have been really fun lately. I've been taking requests from my patrons for certain things they want to see, ways I do stuff, questions that they have about my boat or my rig, and then I make videos about it and show it. So it's really fun and really interactive. If you want access to that, or the ability to request short little videos from me, then my Patreon is patreon.com/windhippie. Thank you so much to all of my patrons who are patrons and are supporting me and interacting with me. You guys are amazing, and you're definitely making this dream possible for me. For one-time donations, I have a PayPal, paypal.me/windhippie. YouTube ads don't really get a lot of money from there, so mostly it's you guys who are helping support my trip, which is very cool, and I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, I have merchandise if you want to buy things that say Windhippie on them, in the link in the description below. Thank you guys for all of your comments. Thank you, Tish, for helping me get these videos scheduled and uploaded on time. Okay, I'll see you guys next week. Patrons and YouTubers, I'll see you in 2 weeks.